We have the privilege and honor to welcome today Mart Laar, who was Prime Minister of Estonia and who's now an MP in Estonia. Dr. Laar, thank you for this interview. Could you let us know about the reforms that you undertook back in 1992 in Estonia?
No, Estonia then was in a very bad situation. We had, in 92, when the new government came to the power, more than 1,000% inflation. There was strong drop in economy. There was high prognosis on unemployment. There was most of the food stuff were on the carts and rations, so it was a real catastrophe. And when we came to the power, as we were young and decisive, so we didn't wait very much and started to act immediately using this window of opportunity to really launch the radical and decisive reforms, because when you are having such a problems, you must really act very decisively. So we balanced first the budget and stabilized the monetary situation. Of course, it means a lot of cuts in the government, so we decreased the size of government significantly, and at the same time introduced all these necessary institutions which are needed, granting the rule of law, the independent court system, and fighting down the corruption. So to do this, first of all, we left the former communists out from the offices. And then we started to introduce the market-oriented reforms, opening our economy, abolishing all custom tariffs, introducing the first flat tax in Europe, which has been now happily followed by many countries. And through this such of supporting the competition and free market everywhere, we have really turned Estonia to the small kind of economical miracle, getting the fastest growth and highest growth in the living standards among not only the former communist states but nearly in all of the world.
What is your opinion on the current financial crisis?
I think the problem in the current financial crisis is that the governments or politicians who are dealing with this, they are pressed to do something, so they are acting not from the because they think that's the right thing to do, but they're acting from the fear, losing their positions, which means the fear doesn't create very sound decisions. And I'm really afraid that this decision, this intervention to the economy is too much, and when somebody hoped that this intervention will save something, then we soon now see it's not happening. In Estonia we were a little bit in the same situation, of course, in the small scale and the scale of my country. So in 92 when we came, we had three big commercial banks, not the biggest one actually, which controlled most of the banking. They were all in similar trouble after the monetary reforms, collapse in Russia and so on. And they came to the government to ask the support and ask the money that we must save them. And they really said to them that, dear people, this is your business. The government can only help themselves, these people who are interested to help themselves. And we send a very strong message out and we let them do the bankrupt. Most of the Western advisors was, to put it very mildly, they were absolutely shocked. They thought that the people will lost their money in the banks, will run to the streets and they will create enormous problems. But the people actually understood very well that the government gives this money, it saves not the banks and not the deposit, it saves the owners. And why these owners must be saved when they have done such terrible and bad mistakes. And so we only got the better banking and less state intervention, because to be very frank, looking on this government crisis, this is not in the same way the fault of banks, but in the same fault of governments who encourage the banks to give such of cheap and simple loans, creating through this crisis what we see. And the danger in such of attitude to get the government involved to all this solution is that we are not getting only the collapse in the Wall Street, but we get the collapse in the whole world economy. Because in 1929, this was started, of course, in a similar way with the collapse in the Wall Street, but this was not the cause of the big depression. The cause was those bad and stupid decisions which was done afterwards, closing the markets, to abolish the free trade, to raise the taxes and so on. And from the result of this, the countries went to the real economical crisis. So our most important target is to understand what really happened, to understand that the market economy works and to not to get to the same mistakes which were done in the 30s.
Mr. Laar, thank you for these unorthodox and very interesting positions. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time.